Hey everybody, what's going on? We have another HTML tutorial. Actually, this is a CSS tutorial. So we're going to start off with just a simple web page template, and then I'm going to show you how we can use CSS to make style changes in a way different than the inline style that we've been using. Okay, so here's what we have. This is kind of similar to what we've been doing for the other tutorials on the page. Doc type HTML, and then we have the HTML tags here. Up in the head section we have a place for the title, Medicare set UTF-8, and then we have the body section, and inside the body section we have a place for our header, a place for a navigation panel type thing, navigation menu. And we have three sections, and we have a footer, and then we close the body and close the HTML down at the bottom. So you can pause that and get that down, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So we are going to call this page, we're going to call this Embedded Internal CSS. So there's different ways you can incorporate CSS or style sheets to your pages. One of them is if it's inline, and that's, for example, like when, so here for the header, let's go ahead and put in our header here just to give you the example. And let's say we go with just a H1 tag here, okay? And inside of this H1 tag, we are going to put down, this is an important web page. Okay, so you know, in the past, if we wanted to change something with our H1s, we did it individually, and we did like H1, and then we did our style equals, and maybe we were going to change the color. But then when we remembered our commandments of the web design, how we want to be consistent, if we change to H1 in one place, then we'd have to go in and individually change it at all the other places. And when you were making these web pages, you had to be thinking there's got to be an easier way to do this. And this is how we do that. We're going to use today what's called an embedded CSS, or an embedded cascade style sheet. And this one's an internal one. There's another way we can do this, and we'll talk about that later in another tutorial, but with this one here we're going to include all of our CSS information in the same web page. Okay, so everything we've done up to this point has been inline, just making the changes at each element when they came up, and now we're going to learn how to do this in a much better way. And you'll appreciate it a lot more, because then you'll say, man, that was really a pain when I used to have to change all those individually. Now I can just do it all as a CSS. Okay? So we have this up here in the header. Okay, and then let's see, down in the footer we can actually let's put in a paragraph, and then inside of the paragraph tags, let's go ahead and put in an emphasis, and then here we'll close the emphasis. Okay, and then inside let's just do a little and copy entity code, and then let's just put our names. This will be just a generic thing, and then I'm going to go with year. Okay, just so we have something down in the footer. So we got that taken care of. Let's look at the navigational menu, shall we? So this navigational menu, and I guess I should tell you, I just called this file index.html. You can call it whatever you want for this, alright? And then this will be set up to work with 3 pages when we're done, but you don't have to make those pages right now. We can worry about that later. Okay, so let's look at the navigational menu. So let's see, for this, in a past tutorial we made a navigational menu, I think about restaurants, and we used an unordered list. So let's make one of those here. So we have UL close up the UL, and then let's see here. Well, let's go with LI, and then we'll close the LI. We'll just do the first one, then we'll copy and paste it a whole bunch of times. How does that sound? So our list items, and inside of that, that's where our link is going to be. So let's go ahead and say, let's see what we want to put this in. We'll just go a href equals quotation marks index dot html. Remember, this is a relative link that I'm using here because this is from my own site. It's not, so I don't need the http://www stuff with it. So I have that on there. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm going to go ahead and close the anchor tag, and then here I'm going to type in home. Okay. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that two more times. Okay. And this one I'm just going to call this second page, we can call this one content, and this third one we'll call about us. And then here I'm just going to go, I'm going to call this one content.html, and this one here I'm going to call about.html. I didn't make these pages yet, so these are going to be dead links, but just so you can kind of get the idea of how this will look. Okay, so we finished the header, we finished the navigational menu, we just have these sections left. So let's put some stuff in there that we can style. Alright, so let's go ahead and put in H2 for this. And we'll close the H2. And right here I'm going to type in a smaller headline. Alright, and then underneath that I'm going to put in a paragraph. Alright, and inside this paragraph we're just going to type something like some text that is related to the smaller headline above. And then underneath that, let's go with the trusty horizontal rule. Okay, so that's our first section. Now I'm going to copy these lines here. I'm going to paste those into this second section. And right here I'm going to type in, I'm going to change some of the text. So this one's going to say another smaller headline, some more text that is related to the smaller headline above. Okay, so we got a horizontal line. Okay, going into the third section now to save time. And here I'm going to say and yet another smaller headline, some text that is, and here I'm just going to say some even more text that is related to the smaller headline above. Okay, so we got those sections all done. This is a pretty simple web page, right? We've done these things in all of our tutorials. Let's launch this in Chrome. Let's take a look, and yep, pretty generic looking, kind of ridiculous on here, but we can kind of see what's going on with that, right? We got our H1 up here, we got our H2s, we got our paragraphs, we have our little link here. When I click this, we stay at home. When I click content, I don't have a content page, but you can see it's trying to find those links there. We just haven't created those pages. So the links work. We don't have the pages created for them, and our little copyright thing with the italics, emphasized text, looks good. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. And like I said before, we would say, oh man, I want to change something with this header too right here. And then we would have to change it in all three places. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and create Embedded internal CSS sheet for this. Alright, so where we can put this is up in the head section here. Okay, so I'm going to go underneath my meta character set, but before the head tag, and here I'm going to go ahead and enter my first style. So I'm going to go, this is real easy how you do this. You type in the name of the element. So our first one here that we want to change is the H1, for example. So I'm going to type H1 up here. Okay, and then I'm going to put in my fancy smancy brackets here, and I'm going to type in there font hyphen family. This is one of the characteristics we can edit. Alright, and what do I want to change it to? How about instead of serif, I go with the sans serif. So I'm going to go with Helvetica right here. Okay, and then after that I have to end it with a semicolon, and I have to close the fancy smancy bracket, otherwise it won't work. Okay, so I'm going to click save, and I'm going to go to run. I'm going to launch in Chrome. For crying out loud, I almost forgot the most important part. Holy cow. Okay, so before we can put that in there underneath the UTF-8, wow, it's been a really long day. What I need to do is I need to put in my style up here, my style tag. So here it says style, okay, and then underneath that I close my style. Wow. Amateur Hour brought to you today by Brandon Peterson. Alright, so we have that saved. Now let's click make sure we save this, go to run, launch in Chrome. Hey, there we go. So right here you can see we don't have the serifs coming off the edge of the letters. It's just a nice plain text, and you can see the difference from what the default ones are. Okay, so there we go. You can use any font that is on your computer for these type of things, but it will only show the font if like you have those fonts installed on your computer. So like if I used a font that was only installed on my computer, it would work here, but if other people didn't have that font, like if it was a custom one I made, you know, then it would go to a related font, and we'll talk more about how you can have alternative fonts and stuff like that in font families later. Okay, so good. So now that we got that, so underneath meta character set we add style, and we closed our style. Here we add our H1, and we made our rules, and that's how it works for that. Okay, that's pretty easy, right? Okay, so we go ahead and we put a style in for the header. That's all I really want to do right now with the header. Okay, next thing I want to do is I want to turn this dumb looking navigational menu into something that looks a lot cooler, and I'm going to do this in the CSS style sheet also. Okay, so after Helvetica up here, I'm going to hit enter a few times, and here I'm going to go ahead and put in a, actually, remember last time when we made a separate div tag, and it kind of separated the outside of our web page, and it kind of made a nice separate area from the background from where the content was? Let's go ahead and do that here. So let's look at our HTML code, and in here we can put in underneath body but before header. Let's go ahead and wrap all of this stuff up inside of a div tag. So I have body up before the header, you know, in between those, and then I'm going to go down here, and then down at the bottom between footer and body, I'm going to go ahead and close my div right there. Okay, so I'm wrapping all that stuff inside of a div tag. This'll look pretty nice. I think this will look pretty good. All right, so let's scroll back up to the top and go back to our style section, our style sheet, and here we go. Let's go ahead and let's do something here with the body of this now. So let's go body, and let's use our fancy smancy brackets like what we did before, and I'm going to type in background color : And after that, I'm going to type in # F2, 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 and then end it with my semicolon. Okay, so I'm going to save that. I'm going to launch this in Chrome. Okay, so I got a little bit of a gray color here, okay? So that worked pretty good. Now I'm going to make a style change to my div section, alright, to that container. So, let's go here. Underneath that, let's go ahead and choose div. Fancy smancy brackets. And here I'm going to go background hyphen color colon white. That'll be good. And then I'm going to hit enter. And I don't like to use my CSS rules going on forever. I like to have them right underneath each other, and so the spacing for that doesn't matter. So I'm going to go div background color white. Alright. And then here inside the same brackets, inside those same fancy brackets there, I'm going to go width colon, let's go 80% semicolon. Okay, and then I'm going to go border colon solid black thin. So you'll be able to see all sorts of characteristics that and attributes you can give in your CSS rules here. Okay, so I got a border, and then I'm going to go margin colon auto, and that is so it fills the margin with whatever's left over from our 80% here. Okay, so let's see, I think we got that all pretty good. Should be set. Save, and I'm going to look at this in Chrome. Hey, now we're starting to get something. So we have our background here in gray. That's the body. This here is the div. This is where all our content is. Okay, so we have that. So it's looking a little better. We didn't have to use the border. I don't know, I just put it there so you can see how it looks if there's a border. I could have gone without it, but that's fine. And then these are our horizontal rules, remember. Okay, so let's close out of that. Hey, so we're good with that. Now I think now we're really ready this time for our navigation. So let's go ahead and do this. Since our navigation is an unordered list, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to give a style to my unordered list. So UL, and I'm going to go with list style type. Okay, and we've used these before to change those, and actually I want to go here and I want to choose none because I don't want bullets and whatnot to be to the left of my navigation options, to my hyperlinks. Okay, so list style type colon, and I have none. Alright, then underneath that I'm going to go margin 0, and underneath that I'm going to go padding 0, and then after that I'm going to go overflow hidden, and last thing here, background hyphen color colon pound 333, and close my already got my brackets closed. Okay, so that's there. I'm going to go save, and I'm going to check and make sure this works. So Control S, save, run, launch in Chrome. Okay, so right now we have this navigation section outlined in kind of a dark gray. It looks kind of crappy. Alright, so we're going to keep working on this until it looks nice. Okay, so I'm going to close out of that. So we did the UL there. That's good. That's the first step. Okay, the next step I want to do is I'm going to hit enter a few times there. And still in the style here, I'm going to go and I'm going to choose LI. My list items. Okay, and I want my list items to float left. Okay, so I'm going to click save. I'm going to launch in Chrome. I'm going to look here. Okay, now we got these. They're in line over here. Okay, one after another, all in a straight line. Float left. Okay, still doesn't look very good, but we're working on it still. Okay, so after that, next thing I want to do is I want to make some rules for my anchor tags that are in my list items. Maybe I don't want the rule to apply to every hyperlink. I just wanted to apply this rule to apply to my hyperlink list items. Okay, so the way I would do that is I start off with li, because it is a list item, and then I'm going to use a for my a tag. Okay, and in here I'm going to put my brackets after that, display inline block semicolon. Okay, and then after that I'm going to use color white, so I want the text to be white. Text align is going to be center. Padding, so I'm going to have some space around these, is going to be 14 pixels by 16 pixels, semicolon. And I'm going to use text decoration none and semicolon. Okay, so let's save that. I'm going to check in here, launch in Chrome, and here we have our text. This is starting to look a little bit better. This already looks a million times better than it did before, but we can add a few more cool effects to this. Alright, so I'm going to close out of this. And let's think about this here. Let's go, let's see. Okay, another thing we can do. You have actually special rules that you can give hyperlinks in your CSS, and these are kind of cool. One of them is a hover feature. Okay, so I'm going to go li a, and then I'm going to type in right after the a. I'm going to use colon hover. Okay, so this is a special characteristic we can use with this hyperlink. Okay, so inside of that I'm going to go background hyphen color colon 111 semicolon. Alright, and I'm going to run and launch this in Chrome and take a look here. And it's not really working how I wanted it to. So let me take a look again here. Let me close out of that and let's take a better look at this. So I have a li, okay, I have my a, okay, and then after that I have a colon and I have hover. Okay, then after that I have background color. Oh, and I see what I did. It's always some kind of a punctuation thing or a character. Alright, since this is a hex value. Alright, so now Control S, run, launch in Chrome. Alright, now you can see when I mouse over these, when I hover over it with my mouse, see how it kind of highlights the background of that? Makes them look like buttons even though it's just a list. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Now we can do another thing here. This is kind of a cool effect. So let's try it. I'm going to close out of this and check my list here. And remember when we did those links, those hyperlinks before, and it was in the restaurant tutorial, and we were able to identify areas by a class, and then if you clicked on it, it would take you down to that section so you could navigate to different spots on the same document. We're going to do something a little bit similar to that, same kind of principle anyway. So what I want to do here is I'm going to go down here and I want to, since we're working on the index page, I'm going to go to this line right here where I have the link that takes us home. Okay, and what I want to do here is in the li section I'm going to say class is equal to quotation marks current. Okay, so I'm calling this current. Alright, I'm going to click save. Now if I was working on my content page, I would say li for this one is current. Alright, so this would be something you would change on this address bar or on this navigation bar on all three of your pages of your site. Okay, but since we're working on this one here, we're saying this one is current. Okay, so now what we can do is up here underneath our LIA hover, we can do this. We could go LI and use our class dot current, because we just called that down there. We called it current, right? So we have LI dot current, fancy smancy brackets again, LI dot current, and inside there we want to go change the background color, and let's just call it, let's just use red, something that kind of stands out for this. All right. Okay, so I save that, run. I'm going to launch in Chrome. Whoa, and look at that. Because we're on the home page, the home's lit up with red. All right, because that's the current one. That kind of makes sense. All right, so then you would change those lines, and the content one would be current on the content HTML, and then if we navigated there, it would take us to a page where this would be red, and then these would be the dark gray. Okay, so pretty cool effect using just CSS in a unordered list and a few definitions of your CSS styles to make something that's kind of cool. Nice looking page there. All right, so let's close out of that. Let's see. Let me look at that one more. Actually, no, that's fine. Okay, so we have that on there. A few other things we can do. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's go up here. We have H1 and we have font family Helvetica. Okay, so let's go ahead and go underneath H1 and let's add a rule for H2. All right, and let's do the same thing for this one. Let's go font family Helvetica, and then let's also go color red. All right, so I'm going to save that. I'm going to run launch in Chrome, and see here we have this text all in the color. Just by changing that in one place, we changed those font styles, those typefaces, and we also changed the color for them. See how much time that saves you? It's really pretty slick. All right, so I'm going to close out of that. Let's see what other things we could do to make this look a little bit better. If we perhaps go down to the bottom part of our styles here, get to the end, let's go ahead and make a rule for our horizontal rules. How does that sound? So we could go HR, fancy brackets, with colon, and let's just say 80%. Okay, this might not look the greatest with this page, semicolon, but you could see, like, as I run this, okay, see it shrinks these down. If I had a page that had a lot of horizontal rules, and I'm like, man, 50% looks weird, I wish it was 70%. You know, you don't want to change that every single time for every style, for every horizontal rule through your page. We just changed it in one place. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and go into this, and underneath the horizontal rules we have, let's make one for the footer. Okay, so let's go footer, and we can go text align center. Save that, run, launch in Chrome. Centers everything that is found in the footer. Okay, so that works pretty good as well. You know, this area around the outsides of basically my sections here, you know, let's say I wanted some space around that because I didn't want this quite so close to that black line right there. So we could actually go in here and we can, underneath body, we could go here and say something like, we can make the rule for the sections. Alright, so let's go section, okay, and I'm going to go padding left, and I'm going to go 5 pixel because maybe I don't want the padding to be above and below it, maybe just on the sides. Okay, and then I'm going to go padding right 5 pixels. Okay, so I'll save. I'm going to run launch in Chrome. Alright, and now I have a little bit of space in there from the edges, so they're not quite crept so much up to the side. Okay, so that's quite a lot of things we did. We kind of covered a lot of information. And there's so much more you can do if you Google search on the internet. Hey, what are different styles you can change with CSS, or cool tricks with CSS, and you can always pick up new things. But we were able to take our first web page that just had all of this on a white space. Everything was left aligned, the same font, and then we were able to add this style section, right? And in the style section we just added our rules and put fancy brackets next to them and said what we wanted to change and what we're going to change it to. And we did it for our H1, we did it for our H2, we did it for the body, changing the color. We did it all here. So now if I was going to make my next web page, you know, and I wanted everything to be the same, I could copy this whole thing and paste it and just change the text down here, and it's going to remember all of those rules, and it's going to keep the same style, and it's going to keep your website nice and consistent. Alright, our next CSS tutorial we will show how to do embedded CSS on an external CSS sheet. So we're kind of baby stepping our way to that, and that's even more useful. Okay, so hopefully you got some something useful from this, and you were able to make something that looks kind of like a nice professional start to a web page that you can play around with. And thanks for watching.